And good morrow. Look, I feel like I'm bright and loud. Bright being how shiny I am on your screen. Probably got my settings set kind of correct. Is hoping. Ooh, maybe. Loud because I've got the microphone set possibly correct. Right, this is like the first for me in terms of videos. I am going to talk nice and loud, so hopefully for once we've got a nice clean audio feed. I do have a crosswind coming straight at us. I've set the wind cut high. A little bit of a buffer for some bushes behind me, so it might have some dramatic effect with I don't know, the sound of the wind either blowing across visually, maybe making my hair look kind of awesome. Not really, don't do these videos for being about me. Look, I do these videos because I feel that there's like-minded people out there. People who might be feeling the same way, they might be going through certain things in their life that makes it so that they're not sleeping at night, or they're stressed, or that the people around them have all that going on. And I'm not just trying to be some, was it those hypnotists, those people that get up on stage, and they psychics I should say, and they read the crowd, and they use all sorts of tricks to be able to sort of go, oh yeah, I know all about you, right? Yeah, I'm not trying not to do that. I'm not trying to use generalised terms that's effective for everyone. It's very, very inclusive. Arguably I want to be inclusive with my video, sure, but not in a way that I'm manipulating you. We need to be able to take a break from that sort of stuff. My videos generally are about being very honest, straight from the heart, and ideally mine, right? Because they're thought out, right? Well, they're not really thought out. I did my meditation this morning, and the overarching theme that kept coming up is to do with what my next video should arguably be. And poor old consumerism, and corporateness, and all these things that they're just disconnects, right? But we've got to talk about them. They're the elephant in the room that we just go on and ignore. Corporations are bigger than governments, right? So our governments don't have a choice, right? Any financial recovery plan that any country's got basically involves getting in bed with businesses. Sadly, the businesses are all about squeezing us off the planet. There's only so much blood you can eat from a stone. There's only so much of a rich demographic they can keep taking money from. And eventually, the whole systems will collapse, right? There's no option for this. It's just a case of time, right? So, you tell a shitty story, everyone feels shitty. Well, the purpose of my video isn't to say, oh, doom and gloom. It's to present a solution. Now, I have, on other videos, given a solution that I do believe there is a financial recovery plan that we can all use. It works out across the world. If enough people get on board with it, then the human race goes on. We live through that epoch, the great filter, arguably. The epoch, I guess, might end with the next pole shift, arguably, and yeah, I'd like to think that the vision accounts for that too. Maybe just from a tourism point of view, maybe building a big old pyramid type thing and stockpiling a lot of food in it, just for the sake of we're needing a place to stockpile the food, but primarily growing a lot of food, but doing the work as well. Like running the call centres and looking after the elderly and giving jobs to the homeless. It's all kind of involved, but it props governments up. Because one of the big ones for most governments around the world is looking after the elderly. We didn't expect medicine to prolong the lives, to have the breakthroughs it's had, and to make the quality of life, arguably, for the elderly go on so long, which is good, but nobody put enough money in their coffers for an aged population that would go on, and especially if they're needy. And the cost of medicine is high, the cost of medicine is high because it's about having a customer for life. So this gets back to corporateness and consumerism, right? Quite sadly, if you keep a customer for life, right? So we get it through firmware updates, all of our equipment's broken. We get it through operating system updates and platform updates, everything forcing us forward and to rebuy stuff every couple of years. That was never the case, right? Mrs. has had last 3 phones all last 7 years or more. We've only retired them because I'm a bit of a technologist. I like to keep abreast of new technology and keep updated. But we're going to squeeze ourselves off the planet because of our desire to spend, arguably. And why do we spend? Well, there's a range of reasons. Some people spend to show that they've got money, to show that they work hard, right? To show that all their values that their parents gave them, they've lived out and they're doing well, right? So some people go out and about and just either having that gold chain around the neck or that nice blingy phone, yeah, that's a thing. So in some cultures that can't afford that nice blingy phone, they have a whole second-hand market of the exact same phone that a lot of the primary, the slightly richer demographic countries don't really deal with. So look, it's a case of different strokes for different pieces of artwork. Every country has a slightly different need in terms of meeting its economic reforms, meeting its ways of being able to manage itself going forward. And I say economic reforms, well, yeah, we've got to change up the way we're spending, right? At the moment, a lot of countries have long-term play or plans in place for spending a lot of money into systems that aren't going to work for it. Then we've got the immediate or short-term future where we know that there's going to be a whole bunch of ways that private enterprise is going to squeeze money out of countries through forced sanctions or just whatever, like it's just ridiculous, the world we're living in. Currently, for a big one for me, and I've done other videos on this, I don't actually want to do a whole video on how we weaponise medicine, and that the short version of it, just so that this video is relevant to someone, and that most people won't watch this video, let alone any other video I do. So maybe I should sort of have a brief in it, so that maybe you can go, oh, this person might be worth watching. I'll show you none of the other videos have such good sound and picture. They might have a better message. Okay, so when we didn't hold accountable recent world events, an ailment came about for everybody, and nobody was to blame, right? So now every single place in the world that's manufacturing solutions to sicknesses, right? When you build a solution to a sickness, you have to play with a given sickness, right? But it's a case of now, if anybody accidentally releases said sickness, they might just become very, very rich, right? So if your business is just about to close or fold because you haven't found a solution to a current world problem, then if you release your own, right, you might get away with it. And that's a big problem for me, because medicine, for starters, it hurts people at a faith level, right? People want to have faith in their governments, they want to have faith in their doctors, they want to have faith in professionals, arguably, right? Because everything we do, right? You drive a car down the road and it all stays together because of the professionalism of the engineers and the designers, or the people who put it together, right? At every step of the way, because we have faith in other people, right? And the systems that are regulating the way other people operate in a commercial market, we go on, right? But if we start to lose faith at every level, right, then we don't sleep at night, and we perform poorly in our own workplace, that everything just kind of falls apart bit by bit, and gradually, right? And that's what we're seeing, is we're seeing the stress levels in everyone, and we're seeing it all come apart. But the nature of taking our faith away from things like medicine, which once upon a time doctors studied for a very long time in order to heal, right? The first rule of medicine was do no harm, right? do no harm, because the aim of medicine was to heal. But when the aim of medicine is to sustain a person in a particular state so that you can keep selling them a solution to their symptoms, not the cause, the symptoms, right? I don't want to make every one of my videos seem similar. So for anyone that's actually willing to watch several of my videos, if I keep going over the same stuff, that's boring. I don't want to cause that disconnect. So I'll just keep this one super short. It's almost like an overview video, which is really not what I want to do. But I do want to talk about what's pressing. And so what is pressing is the fact that people feel helpless. People know we need to change things. Everybody can see that the civilization of humanity is driving off a cliff. And we all go, oh, but nobody else is willing to change, and therefore we're going to go over that cliff, right? Well, we kind of all need to change together. But if we do so unified, we do so at the same time, we're right. I'm not trying to instill some sort of a rebellion. It's not that at all, right? We just need to work for a charity, arguably, that looks after its employees with distributive wealth, right? Because believe it or not, in a charity you're allowed to pay your workers a wage, right? And a living wage will factor the fact that you need accommodation, that you need shelter, that's the shelter part, the accommodation, that you need food, you need basic building blocks in your life in order to live. Arguably, I think clean water and healthy food is kind of important for everyone on the planet, plus a stockpile of them. And at the current way we're going, we're not going to have that, because farmers and everyone don't. It's very hard to be a farmer, and all the big corporations have screwed down the cost of their product to the point where who wants to gamble against the weather when you've got a world with constantly changing weather patterns, and it's getting harder to predict. Being a farmer is a very, very hard line of work. So when we don't pay them very well, right, it becomes very unattractive to be a farmer. We need sustainable farming practices because the planet needs to go forward. We don't want dust bowls again. We need our topsoils to be healthy, not just the topsoils, because depending on the way you farm, right, the ground doesn't hold much water, right? You lead to floods in ways that we just never had previously. There's a lot we need to change about so much of the way we're currently living, because everything in the current world has been propped up to not pay it forward, right? We're all just robbing ourselves of our futures because we're going, oh, if I can make money in the short term, I'll be all right, right? So we need to stop that, which means we basically need to be working for an organisation that puts quality of life first. And in doing so, we change all of our systems for long-term plays, right? Something our politicians can't do. Politicians have to serve short-term plays. They have to be attractive over the course of a few years in order to get voted back into office. And so as soon as we set ourselves up for that, in my country I've seen it, look, I don't want to be for one party or another party. I personally aren't interested in the nature of politics because I kind of find the major parties mirror each other's platforms, and really you're voting for one bunch of clowns or another bunch of clowns who are basically not going to look after us, right? Because the nature of you have to look after the world in 4-year increments, right? You can't do that, right? And so there's been times in history, if I go back 30 or 40 years in my own country, where political parties would put plans at play that would reduce economic debt for the country, therefore lower, like they'd actually make a play that would actually work for everyone in the long term, which meant in the short term everyone had to tighten their belts a little bit, right? So we're at that stage again in civilization. We've had times where in America in the last 100 years, the desert was, the middle of their country, or their agricultural zones were being lost, and they had dust bowls, and so everybody, right, left work. About 1 million people walked out of work and went out and made swales and did what they had to do to change the weather patterns and reclaim basically desert, right? So there's precedent for being able to work together as a human race and to save our quality of life. The nature of doing it and doing it with an ultimate goal for a long-term play, we can do this, right? We've never had such easy ability to communicate en masse and to ensure that systems are working out in parallel around the world. And when I say systems are working out in parallel, I mean if you've got a charitable organisation, arguably in every country, which is propping up the government, right? So it doesn't have to make silly short-term plays. It's propping up the government so it doesn't have to get in bed with people that look like they can prop them up in the short term. It's giving people an option to living, one that they actually want, which might be being able to live without showing passports, please, with regards to, I don't know, a chip in the arm or whatever. Right now, if you think I'm threatening your business, okay, I'm not, because if we can't generate a world with happiness, if we can't have an opportunity or an option for people to live happily, right, you can never be happy. Doesn't matter how much money your business makes in the short term, right? You've still got to live in a world which is falling apart around you, which has major environmental and economic issues going on all around you, which means if it's not your immediate family, it's the people they deal with, it's their loved ones, right? You can have the whole Romeo and Juliet thing going on. You go, oh, I don't want you dating them for a range of reasons. Because I know, because you probably know a little bit more what's going on. If you've got a lot of cash and you've been able to protect your family, right, you still can't control the world outside of them. And if it's filled with unhappiness, all the media that you're going to be able to consume is going to be written for the masses, for the people who are unhappy. Yeah, okay, you might be able to buy some special super subscription to a range of stories that are written by happy elitists for happy elitists. But the divide just widens. And at what point does it become unacceptable? How long can you live in your ivory tower before you realise, hey, maybe I shouldn't have done that. Maybe I shouldn't have just tried to put more money in a bank, right? Because once you've got enough money to live, you can't do anything more with that money. You can't buy a better hamburger. You can't, if the artisan quality that makes your house is made up of people that are only working in jobs and industries for small amounts of time because everyone's deeply unhappy and whatever is going on, and that the level of professionalism and the level of artisan and everything's coming down, yeah, sure, you might be able to buy something a little bit different. But for how long? Because I guarantee you there's bigger fish than you, and they're either ready to absorb you or they're ready to sell you a product, and when you're the only person left to sell that product to, then they're going to do all the same tricks and antics that they do on currently the middle or the lower or wherever the businesses currently draw their cut-off line. And the businesses do draw their cut-off lines, right? I own so many products that are exited from the system, and they choose when to exit it. They know that the tax write-off time on this is such, and anyone that has that product fail after that time, through a firmware update or whatever, isn't going to complain. And if they do complain, they won't have the power to really get very far, and their voice isn't worth anything. And so every business is restructuring itself to figure out which bunch of customers do we want to service. And so, okay, eventually, if you've got the money, you might be the customer, the lone customer of some big business, right? And that's when you'll find out that, wow, maybe I shouldn't have worked towards, out on a fear-based reality, just stockpiling all my money in case of a rainy day, right? Because when there's no more weather and no more water, and you to get a little bit of drinking water have to pay what is equivalent to a car on the road right now on a daily basis because you're the last customer left. You've got to prop up all the systems, right? Don't know how far away that is. I'd like to think that future still exists, because at the end of the day, that's still a positive outcome in my for humanity living, right? If even a little pocket of people go on living, we've done all right. And that's going to be our great filter. Arguably, it's not going to be social. It's not going to be any of these things. It's going to come down quite simply to the fact that we all could see that we had stuff coming up, but we're all too tired to deal with it. Right? We know a pole shift is imminent. It might be 300 years away. Right? But how long does it take to build a really good pyramid and get agriculture going on and getting a stockpile of really good food and doing all that sort of stuff, right? That's on the scenario that it's 300 years away. You know, what if our math is wrong, right? We can see that bit by bit we're slipping a little bit more, right? But like many things, you look at your standard deviations or the vector of how things actually move and operate, right? The fact that there's movement at all, right? Our minds are trained to see that movement, right? That's hunting, right? We know if we weren't trying to be blind to all the things that are going on, we would see it and we would start to act or operate on that. But because everyone feels helpless, we just switch our brains off to even thinking about such concepts, because we've already got enough on our plate. And that is arguably the theme of this video, the pulse. That's what I'm trying to indicate there. And yeah, I'm kind of sensitive. I've trained to feel like a rice grain or a strand of hair under about 20 sheets of paper. I'm a bit of a good masseuse. You know, I can feel out the sinew and stuff in a person's body. But yeah, feeling the pulse probably through a shirt in a video where I'm talking at fast pace, and you kind of feeling your own pulse when you've got the pulse through your other fingers. You know, yeah, that can get in the way. So I don't want to look like I don't know what I'm talking about. That's the only reason I go on a ramble there. I mean, I don't know what I'm talking about. This is all just rambling on, right? Imagine what I could do in a video where I used a script. I'm just one person, right? I'm not the best brain on the planet. Imagine what happens when you get your brains trussed together with one attitude of from the top down, improving quality of life and building things for long-term play, right? Don't for one second think we can't do it. You're just living in the current paradigm which says to you, oh no, you're not allowed to do it, and you'll be ineffective trying that, and there's not enough people that are going to do that, right? That's a fear-based reality. That's your parents that are saying, oh, there's no jobs in my country if we have immigrants, right? That's where racism comes from, right? We're not born racist, right? We're taught these fears. We're taught our stresses, right? So it's time for us to live with courage and go past the wall that we currently see right in front of us, right? We've got some options. We can turn around and go back. I guess that's kind of what I'm saying, but nobody wants the imagery of that. God, we really need to go over it. We kind of need to jump it. We need to go, yeah, look, that's no longer a concern. We're going to just change our trajectory and go up and be happy, right? Now, I'm not saying it's all totally easy. For one generation at most, I can see that things will be different, right? There's tumultuousness. Tumultuousness is great. That's how planes stay in the air, right? You need turbulence. We need edge zones. Edge zones is where life is just prolific and just flourishes, right? So we're going to have a massive edge zone. It's going to be great for decades. When we're rolling out such a system, all the people with the cash will be able to spend it into said charity, because we are going to have the highest grade of tourism. We are going to have the most beautiful vistas, the most pristine way of life that people will want to buy into that accommodation. It's like the old book, The Celestine Prophecy, which gave this notion of, there was a retreat in it at one point where people were able to eat food that was grown with like spiritual energy, and they were able to hang out with like-minded people that were all pro a new way of life, right? Well, at some point, the people that have stuck out the existing world and are just determined to earn the money so eventually they can do that, they're going to want to do that with the people who actually have a way of life that's worth living in, right? So bit by bit, people will migrate, possibly en masse at some point, but let's be ready for that if that happens, right? Let's be proactive and think ahead, right? Let's not be reactive and then en masse exodus for a solution that isn't out there, you know, and we're just hoping that we're running away from something, that there's something better than what we're running away from, and that's it, right? Let's not do that. Let's actually have a solution at play. Let's work together. Let's preempt what's coming up, and let's be ready for it. And if being ready for it means just being ready to receive the money from the people that need to spend it, right? So we're going to look after the elderly. We're going to absorb the homeless. We've got jobs for everyone. The quality of life is going to go up because we're going to be living without fear, because we're going to be living with dignity, because we're all going to have a roof over our head. We're not going to be worrying about arguing with individual little companies because they want to create a disconnect with, oh, we overcharge you that, but if we make you wait 40 minutes on a phone, we know that we might get away with it. The people that are really broke will stay on the phone long enough to, as I say, every business is trying to squeeze us out, squeeze us down. But the stresses in the short term and the interim, the mid-term, if not just for you, for your loved ones, it's wiping us out. We know that stress raises heart rates. We know that our heartbeats is basically the finite to our time on this planet. Case in point, if you exercise at a young age, condition your heart to beat at a lower level, you're basically setting yourself up to live really, really long. But stresses don't do us well. Some stress is good, it motivates us, but too much stress actually wipes us out, right? So we've got every possible reason to make ourselves extinct, right? And if not the human race, maybe just your tribe, right? Maybe just your lineage. But I feel that we're better if we stand together. I feel we're better if we have an amalgamation of the minds and a pooling of knowledge, which means if we change it round and we stop making the commercial world having to divide the knowledge, and they own a little bit of the solution to the puzzle. They own a little bit of the solution to the puzzle, but they'll never get together because they figure if they can absorb other businesses that have a little bit of the solution to the puzzle, that they'll just win out and eventually they'll own a market share and they'll be the bigger company and therefore they'll be able to act ruthlessly and win, right? And that's how it's been going for a very long time. But we don't need that. What we've got at the moment all around the world is part of the solution stockpiled everywhere, but not able to be released because people are sitting on an IP because it competes with their current way of making money or whatever, right? And all of that stuff changes overnight with one paradigm shift, one change to the way that human civilization can live. And I guarantee you, if you were able to, at the start of your life, know that you were going to get an extremely good quality of life offered to you and would be able to be remunerated more than fairly for the time that you have given to the world, right? Because that's our debt. When we're born, we have a debt, right? Because all the minerals and all the deposits and all the things around us that prop us up, that's living on this planet, right? So we're not just entitled. From the moment we're born, we do have to earn our way. And at the moment, the new generations are coming along and they're seeing themselves as incapable. So, you're welcome. No, it's facing this way, mate. It's all good. The new generations are coming along and they're basically incapable of working. They don't. They find that either they're too hurt or they're too disempowered. They haven't learnt the skills to communicate because of fear-based reality, and they're basically unemployable. Well, that's nonsense. In a new paradigm, and I guarantee you it's nonsense because look, most of the biggest profitable organisations around the planet figured out many decades ago that if you write a handbook for every position in an organisation, that anyone can just come along and just read what is it I'm meant to be doing, right? You can actually have some of the biggest, most valuable industries in the world run by teenagers, right? We've had that for decades, right? And that they get trained up and they learn the skill set. It's fantastic. But we can modulise, we can upskill, and I think you'll find in a world where we're really happy to work for our workplace. One of the things that changes, right? If it's like shared profits, arguably, one of the first things that happens in the current system, and just in private enterprise, is that if people are getting that bonus at Christmas time because the company didn't have a lot of industrial accidents, you watch how well everybody walks the floor and pays attention, right? Everyone becomes an OH&S officer. Everyone is all about propping things up, right? Crime from the workplace, yeah, that drops off. So many things drop off, but as do sick days, as does the flakiness of the lack of reliability of everything. And if you can rely on all your team members to act at a level of professionalism, if you can rely on your team members or the other roles on a shift or on a team that you need to depend on a daily basis to always be able to do their roles. And if not, it's Jim and Jane, it's Janet and John, right? Because they've also been trained up for the role. And if we have almost an element of, you can say redundancy, but when we've got so many people on the planet, there's so much we can do with a workforce that is that large. And it does mean that all positions can be accounted for, that we can remunerate people very, very well. Doesn't matter if you're doing an uncomfortable role or not. The actual work times we need to work can be dramatically pulled down. We can work over an extended life frame because children at a younger age can do some basic elements of what is the Industrial Revolution. We don't need to mechanise everything. Some things we just need to do to use our skeletal muscular pump, actually for just mental well-being. It's good to actually have a component of physical exercise and activity in our days. And in a well-structured society, all of these things can happen. All of our desires and needs can be met. It can happen, but it requires a paradigm shift, right? And they all work together. All these aspects all work together. I've got the vision. I've seen it, right? It's not me. It's not mine. You know, am I an architect? No, I've just lived in it. I can put it down on paper for how it works. I can explain to others the systems that all interlock and they work, and at every level they prop up governments, at every level they prop up people, businesses, to everything in the transition from the current system to the future system works, all the different levels for everyone, all the players involved. So